Hello and welcome to this short video introduction to process mapping. We will look at what a process map is and why we should map our processes. We will look at how we can do that and how to analyse the results to better understand the systems that we work in. The aim of this video is to introduce you to creating and analysing a process map. You may want to pause the video for a moment whilst you get a pen and paper, as you might like to take some notes as we go along. By the end of the video, you will be able to recognise a process map, explain why we use process maps, and create and analyse a process map. So let's look at what a process map is. Process mapping is one of the most important improvement tools. In work, we want to reduce variation and have standard processes to ensure safe and reliable care. Process mapping can help us to identify and reduce unwanted variation. A process map is a diagram of tasks, activities, and decisions, recorded in the order that they take place, with each step linked to the next by an arrow. We are all working in a complex health and care system. All systems are made up of multiple processes, or what we do each day. How the system runs depends on many variables, including how effective our processes are. Making small changes can have a big impact down the line. And by mapping our processes, we are able to begin to understand our part within the wider system and ask, is it the best it can be? Here is an example process map for a person in distress at home who presents at A&E, is seen by the psychiatric liaison team and admitted to an acute mental health unit. This is what we call a high-level process map, which means not much detail is included. Imagine you are looking at something with a bird's eye view from far away. Sometimes a high-level process map is sufficient for what we want to do. However, the lack of detail can make it more difficult to understand the system fully and the processes that are involved. This process map is what we call a low-level process map, where we have zoomed in on the process and looked at it in much more detail. It is still looking at a person in distress who presents at A&E, is seen by the psychiatric liaison team, and then admitted to an acute mental health unit. Going into more detail can help us to identify where there are issues, repetition, and variation. It allows the system to be fully explored and understood, to identify where changes could be made and what their impact could be. Paul Battledon once said, "Every system is perfectly designed to deliver the results it gets." Within every system, there will be some degree of variation that will take place. However, you cannot create improvements without making changes to your existing system. The process is designed to deliver what it is delivering. If you want to create improvements in care and experience, you need to improve the system that is delivering those outputs. If the system is performing badly, it is not due to somebody, but the system itself that allows what is happening to happen. When reviewing our processes, it's important that there is no judgment. We just want to understand what is currently happening. We should include the whole team in this activity. It may not be possible to get the team all together at once. However, you can share a draft which can be updated and commented on by others until you reach a version that everybody is happy with. Our teams are subject matter experts in their part of the process, and viewing the process through different eyes is valuable. It can also encourage the generation of new ideas, as well as being an opportunity for the whole team to understand what each other does and the part each other plays to achieve a shared goal or outcome. So now we know what a process map is and why we should review and map our processes. How can we create a process map? There are three core shapes that we use in process mapping. Process maps begin and end with an oval shape. The main shape we use is a rectangle, which is for the steps in the process. These should be active. For example, doctor completes referral form. The diamond shape is used for questions and decisions. For example, you might ask, does the service user need a referral? And then map the process if yes, and if no. There are a number of principles for process mapping. Be clear on where you are starting and stopping before you begin. Look at what really happens, not what should happen. Make sure you capture what happens most of the time, not the one-offs. Get the team to see the process from outside of their own perspective, observing and looking in. Follow the patient, look at it from their point of view, and create a pictorial representation of your process that everyone agrees on. So we have identified our shapes, and now we need to think about what part of the process we are mapping. It can be helpful to consider if there are any parts of the process that don't work as well as they could, as we may choose to focus here. It is also important to decide what is out of scope, what will we not look at, and who do we need to include in this exercise. Creating boundaries of what is included and not included helps us to stay focused and means we are not wasting valuable time. Let's run through a quick example and process map making a cup of tea. First of all, we need to decide what our starting point is and write this in. For the purpose of this example, the starting point is person wants a cup of tea. Next, if we ask, and then what happens, we can start to identify the process steps in order. The first thing we might do is boil the kettle. Then we might get a cup out of the cupboard, put a tea bag in the cup, pour boiling water into the cup. Next, we get the milk out of the fridge, add the milk to the cup, and we have just created a very simple process map of how to make a cup of tea. So let's get started. Remember that process mapping is a group activity and should involve all members of the team. We can also include anyone who may be affected by changes we might make, including patients and service users. Detailed process mapping helps us to understand exactly what's happening and by whom. We should include timings too. How long does each step take? And what is the time between steps? Often process problems become evident during the process mapping session. These should be parked on a flip chart and discussed at the end of the session with the group. It's important to balance detail and time. We can work together on a process map both in a face-to-face group setting and in a virtual setting if it is not possible to get the group together in one place. In a face-to-face setting, we need large sheets of paper, sticky notes, marker pens, sticky tack to stick the paper on the wall, and sticky tape to stop the sticky notes from falling off once we have agreed that the order and the steps are correct. Getting everyone together can be difficult as a result of shift working and geography. We can also work together to review and map our processes in the virtual space. Microsoft Teams has a whiteboard application which enables teams to create virtual sticky notes and move them around on screen. Alternatively, a small group may choose to create a draft version using PowerPoint or Word, which is then shared via email with others for their contribution. It is advisable to include version numbers on each version, so we know which is the most recent. If you have a staff room that everyone has access to, but not necessarily at the same time, we could consider sticking it on the wall and asking staff to add their comments and thoughts on sticky notes during a specific period of time. Whether you create your process map face-to-face or virtually, as the facilitator of the session, your role is to tease out the real process and ensure that the team stay on task. It's very easy to get swept away on possible areas of improvement. Capture all your great ideas somewhere, for example, on a flip chart, so that you can come back to them when the time is right. Improvement Cymru have a separate process mapping toolkit that you can use to help you with this. Once we have mapped the process, we need to analyse it and consider how it can be improved. So going back to our making a cup of tea example, we can start to ask questions such as, is the kettle located near to the tea making station? Is there wasted time through unnecessary travel and movement? Have we actually got any tea bags? Is there a system in place to identify when they are running out and buy some more? Did the person want sugar? Do we need to amend the process? You will also note that the tea bag was not removed from the cup in this example. How would your process differ? There are 8 forms of waste we can look for in processes, and an acronym to remember these is TIMWOODS. This is essentially responding to the questions what, who, where, when, how. So transport might look at moving people, products and information. Inventory might consider, are we storing kit and documentation ahead of requirements? Motion could include unnecessary bending, turning, reaching and lifting. Weighting might think about unnecessary weights for information, instructions or equipment. Overproduction includes making more of something than is immediately required. Overprocessing looks at using tighter tolerances or higher grade materials than are necessary. Defects includes rework and incorrect documentation. And skills considers underutilising capabilities and delegating tasks with inadequate training. So how can we relate this to our own work? As an example for transport and moving of people, goods and information, you might consider how many trips are made each day to pharmacy by ward staff. This impacts on pharmacy through constant interruptions, it impacts ward staff at various points through the day, and decreases the number of staff available to do other jobs. Could you improve processes and reduce the travelling by having set times for all orders to be in, and have one allocated person to take the order to pharmacy from all of the wards, rather than having all the wards sending their own staff? Each time a visit is streamlined, it would reduce both the visit there and the visit to go back and collect multiple orders in the day. Thinking about wasted time waiting, we could look at a lack of physical healthcare equipment. For example, if there are not enough ECG machines in the hospital, so when you need one, you have to wait and walk it between the wards with no system for knowing where it was last left. And an example of overproduction might be the over-ordering of food and drinks, which go to waste as service users are discharged or on leave. Have a think. Can you identify any forms of waste in your workplace? On your process map, label and detail anywhere there are issues or wasted time and resources through duplication. The next part of the analysis of the map is to consider the reliability of the process. If you have a process with 10 steps and each step is 95% reliable, then if you times 0.95 by 0.95 10 times, the reliability of the overall process is just 60%. Would you be happy if your car started 60% of the time? So we have 2 options. We can either increase the reliability of each step or reduce the number of steps. If we now reduce this process to 5 steps at 95% reliability each, the whole process is now 77% reliable, which is an improvement of 17%. Removing steps is the easiest way of making a process more reliable, but you have to truly remove the steps. So let's recap. In order to make the process better, we want to look at the number of steps, the order of the process, transfer of person or information, look at what is adding value and what is not adding value. So you should now be able to recognise a process map and understand why we use process mapping. You should also be able to go away and create and analyse your own process map. So, next steps. Once you have analysed your process map, you need to identify what you're going to do next with your team. Consider how will you include and communicate with your team and stakeholders. Not every change you make will be a project. Sometimes you know what needs doing and can just do it. If you decide you want to do an improvement project, you can register for the Improvement in Practice programme, which can support you as you work through the project. If you want to have a practice before you get stuck into processes in the workplace, have a practice as a group and map the process of booking a GP appointment. Familiarise yourself with the shapes and working as a team, noting the questions and discussions that arise. For more information about the Improvement Cymru Academy, our resources and our training programmes, please visit our website. Thank you and good luck.